Half a century after the 1973 Arab oil embargo, the ongoing crisis in the Middle East poses a risk to global oil supplies and the potential for price increases. Nevertheless, experts suggest that the extreme price spikes and lengthy gasoline queues of the past are unlikely to recur. The conflict between Israel and Hamas is a concerning development for oil markets, which are already strained due to production cuts from Saudi Arabia and Russia, coupled with anticipated increased demand from China, according to the head of the International Energy Agency, Fatih Birol. The executive director of the IEA based in Paris expressed his concerns, stating, "Markets will remain unpredictable, and this conflict may lead to higher oil prices, which is a cause for concern regarding inflation." He also highlighted that developing nations reliant on oil and other fuels would be most vulnerable to the impact of rising prices. The international benchmark, Brent crude, closed at $93 per barrel on a recent Friday, up from $85 on October 6, the day Hamas initiated attacks on Israel, resulting in the loss of hundreds of civilian lives. In response, Israel launched airstrikes on Gaza, causing extensive damage and further civilian casualties in the days following the initial attack. Following the attack, oil prices experienced fluctuations, reaching as high as $96. The price of oil hinges on consumption and availability. The latter is threatened by the Israel-Hamas conflict. Despite the fact that the Gaza Strip is not a major crude oil producer, one major concern is that this conflict could lead to complications with Iran, home to some of the world's largest oil reserves. International sanctions have constrained Iran's crude production, but it continues to supply oil to China and other countries. Andrew Lippo, president of Houston-based consultant Lippo Oil Associates, explained, to see a sustained increase in prices, a supply disruption would be required. Any damage to Iran's oil infrastructure resulting from a military strike by Israel could cause global oil prices to soar. Even without that scenario, a shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz, located south of Iran, could disrupt the oil market since a significant portion of the world's oil supply passes through this waterway. Until such supply disruptions occur, the oil market will remain vigilant, monitoring events in the Middle East, as stated by Lippo. One key reason a return to the 1970s-style gasoline lines is unlikely is the current record-high U.S. oil production. In the first week of October, the U.S. Energy Information Administration reported American oil production reaching 13.2 million barrels per day, surpassing the previous record set in 2020 by 100,000 barrels. Weekly domestic oil production has doubled since October 2012. Mike Summers, president and CEO of the American Petroleum Institute, the leading lobbying group in the U.S. oil industry, emphasized the importance of American energy strength in a speech marking the 50th anniversary of the 1973 oil embargo. He highlighted the stark contrast between current U.S. production and the country's weakened position during the Arab oil embargo. Summers urged U.S. policymakers to heed the lessons of 1973 and not squander the nation's strategic advantage in energy leadership. He has been critical of President Joe Biden's policies, particularly those restricting new oil leases as part of efforts to combat global climate change.